you doing tonight? Yes, welcome in, Nurgle. Yes, part 2 hype. You're correct. Sup, Eric? Good to see you. I don't know if I'll finish it tonight or not. I don't know. We're 2.5 hours into the 5. I don't think I can go the full 3 hours. I think we're going to have to probably break this up into a 3-parter. That's a long time to sit and look at something. Long time. But yeah. Going into chapter 3. I'm excited. I'm curious to see what he does with the worm. Do I care about the Elden Ring trailer? That's a great question. For the most part, not really. I mean, I'm glad people are excited for it. I mean, that's fine. I mean, to each their own. I've never played a Souls game. Well, that's not entirely true. I played Dark Souls 1 remastered for like an hour and just kind of decided it wasn't my thing. So, I don't know. I mean, I'm not against it. It's not necessarily my thing. But I know a lot of people are hyped, though. I saw Zeostorm was going nuts with the breakdown. So yeah, part 2. Part 2. Good people playing tonight. Not a lot though. Not a lot. All right, I got my water here. Big old cup, 50 ounces sitting here, ready to go for a while. Drink that water, stay hydrated, and let's go ahead and get started into part 3.
The coral, it's here in this desolate place.
Looks like you've made it to the central ice field, 621. Good. I'm done tying up loose ends.
I want to quickly note, Walter only ever says that he has to tie up loose ends in missions after the PCA is involved. Considering there are multiple examples of him interrupting PCA communication systems, I want to say that it's possible that Walter has a backdoor set up into the PCA systems, and that's what allows him to tie up all these loose ends.
Arquebus found their own way in and are ready to deploy survey squads. And it looks like Balam's come running after you scoped out the place too. You know what's going to happen. Business as usual.
Chapter 3 immediately reveals a little bit more about these coral trails, as the first mission has you steal some data from Arquebus's coral survey in the central ice field. According to this data record, cinders from the fires of Ibis are also considered to be inert coral. If something is inert, it means it's no longer chemically reactive. You'd think that that would mean the inert cinders couldn't be used as fuel, but there's a future mission where we fly through dense coral cinders and get infinite fuel, so I'm not sure it can be that. Instead, perhaps this inert coral can no longer reproduce or serve as a data conduit. Whatever the case, inert coral, residual coral, cinders, whatever you want to call it, this coral still has a voice, and I guess you could argue that these voices are the voices of ghosts, since this coral isn't really considered alive anymore. Moving on, this log talks about how Arquebus also surveyed PCA's old bases on the central ice field, revealing that They were built on planet to help facilitate the PCA construction of the closure system, only to be abandoned afterwards.
Even the Rubiconians have forsaken this lifeless place.
Indeed, the Rubiconians don't really have much of a presence here on the central ice field. Perhaps this is because the fires of Ibis originated here all those years ago, and maybe it burned this area the hardest. And on that note, the last piece of observation data reveals a cavity beneath the central ice field. This is the place where the fires of Ibis first originated. But before we can conclude our survey of the base and unearth the secrets it hides, this happens.
Wait! What's that sound? It's above us! No!
Yes, the PCA.
This is your warning. Disarm and withdraw from the closure area immediately. Resistance will be regarded as a declaration of war, and you will be marked for termination. The PCA makes no exceptions.
They make no exceptions,
The
chat.
PCA. They're coming.
No exceptions.
With the exception of the PCA force that came for the mandatory inspection of Baus Arsenal No. 2, this is the first PCA force we've seen that isn't a subject guard. This fleet and its outriders are something else. They're a force reserved for special missions, and appear here to
I've noticed a
suppress
lot of
the
clever word
corporations
choice so
who
far
have
through this whole
clearly
thing.
gone one step too far in their efforts to exploit Rubicon, so they're being suppressed here. Shortly afterward, the PCA
Okay, hold up. Was that pulse protection into Bat Cook? What? What?
act quickly, slightly gone one step too far in their efforts to exploit Rubicon, so they're being suppressed here.
Well,
Shortly afterwards,
sure.
the PCA act quickly, wiping out several of Arquebus and Balam's survey bases and managing to push back the corporations for the very first time. In your first playthrough timeline, the Rubicon Liberation Front celebrates the suppression of the corporations, but in New Game Plus timelines, they know better, and give you missions to take out PCA forces as well, fearing that the corporations will eventually commandeer PCA technology and use it against them. In one such mission from Middle Flatwell, an RLF leader, you're tasked with taking out 2 LCs and a HC. LC stands for Light Cavalry, and the HC is Heavy Cavalry. It's a piece of cutting-edge tech that the PCA deems very powerful.
He must be confident to come here alone. No matter. This beauty's more than a match for some patchwork AC.
And Vaati does
One
love
thing
his
you have to
charge
remember about
hammer
armored
throw.
core units is that
He loves the
there's a lot of
charge.
variance in what an AC can be. As our opponent condescendingly points out, ACs are patchwork. They're modular pieces of tech that are built to the preferences or shortcomings of the pilot. There's also a lot of variance when it comes to AC pilots. Some are dolts like Rummy, who combine a melee chainsaw with literally the worst arms for melee attacks, and some are gods like Rusty, channeling pure anime Gundam main character energy. The PCA Heavy Cavalry, on the other hand, is a non-modular tool, expressly designed for one purpose: suppression of corporate forces. In many ways, it's beyond AC tech, but in other ways, it's beneath AC tech. After all, a HC pilot can't change their build based on the latest patch notes. Haven't they heard? Laser turrets are the meta now. Bazookas are the meta now. Laser tanks are the meta now.
No. The HC cutting edge.
Ugh.
You live up to
Double
your
fully
name,
charged LCAs.
Raven.
That's death.
You fight like a bird in flight. You may yet fly higher, beyond Rubicon's scorched skies, to chase the freedom we never knew.
Raven, I've been thinking about what Middle Flatwell said. The others are so used to fighting and shouting slogans that they've given up thinking. But Flatwell, he's exploring the potential for something new.
Flatwell sees a future for Rubiconians beyond just living within the closure system of the PCA. He may be the RLF's second in command, but he thinks beyond Dolmayan's zealous slogans for the Coral to abide with Rubicon. Dolmayan might have inspired a generation of Coral warriors, but it's Flatwell who seems more relevant in the current age, especially considering the crisis of faith that Dolmayan
Peak
was
cinema.
going through
Welcome in,
during
Ned.
the prison rescue. Anyway, as the corporations prepare their own counterattack on PCA forces, Balaam gives you a mission to distract the PCA, tasking you with destroying a derelict watchpoint that the PCA plan to repair in the future.
Code 1-5, unaffiliated AC.
An attack? Why?
This watchpoint is linked to a coral vein below ground, and it's here for the second time that we destroy a watchpoint sensor and trigger a coral surge, much to Walter's surprise.
A coral
Yeah.
surge. That shouldn't have been enough to...
Yep, this is our poison
621,
swamp
pull
mission.
out,
Yep.
now.
Yeah, it is funny that that
What I
is
find
true.
interesting here is that Walter is consistently surprised that you keep
Yeah.
triggering coral surges
Yeah.
by destroying watchpoint sensors.
I was about to say.
This guy obviously knows a lot about coral, and he doesn't anticipate that destroying a sensor should trigger a surge, so there's clearly some factor here with you that he hasn't been able to account for. So I was thinking, what if it's air? We know from Professor Nagai's logs that a wave mutation precipitated the coral surge that led to the fires of Ibis, so I'm assuming it's the presence of air here in these watchpoints that are triggering coral surges here too, even if she or Walter never realize it.
Code 31C. What's the system's verdict?
Proceed? How exactly?
This is the first time we ever hear indirect orders from the system, the AI that commands PCA personnel, and it doesn't paint a very flattering picture.
It's a nice close-up of that
The
MC.
AI
It looks nice.
simply tells the PCA enforcement squad to proceed with combat, even in the face of a coral surge that will cause certain death. At best, it reveals that the system has no concern for PCA lives, and at worst, it's an overly simplistic order that betrays the system's ignorance about how best to handle this situation.
We don't have time for this.
Hurry, Raven. The coral's coming.
621, don't fall behind.
One misstep, and that coral surge would have swallowed you whole. Raven.
You know what if you die on that mission? I don't think I've ever died before on that mission. What's that do?
In the next mission to attack the PCA's refueling base, we
You don't
listen
know if
in
you'd, like,
on
let it
some
kill you?
chatter
What
from
happens?
the PCA's enforcement squad. They state, "We do what the notice from the system tells us. For now, focus on mopping up the corporate forces. Make sure to keep an eye on the independent mercenaries too. We have Branch to thank for causing this mess. No doubt they've landed on Rubicon." Here we learn that the PCA holds an organization called Branch responsible for the corporate foray onto Rubicon, and by extension, they're also starting to hold you responsible, for the real Raven is a part of Branch, and you
Yo.
have stolen for the
Look at this chunky thing. Look at it. It's so chunky. Oh my word.
real Raven is a part of Branch, and you've stolen their call sign.
The Watchpoint report checks out. Call sign Raven. Priority subject for termination. High on the list.
To deal with you, the PCA have sent their Ektromoi, their executioners, who can quickly catch mercenaries like you while you're mid-mission. And if you die here, the lieutenant actually notes that something is off with you. You're not the Raven they've prepared for.
Target Raven terminated. Code 44, requesting intelligence review. Observations found to contradict briefing.
Meanwhile, back in the Bellius region, the Rubicon Liberation Front is plotting to retake the wall, which Arquebus are now using as a coral survey base. Beyond that, Arquebus have also started setting up some other infrastructure, including a re-education center and an ominous place called the Factory. Text data in this mission reads, "To facilitate smooth progress of the Coral Response Survey, a temporary branch of AREC is to be installed on Rubicon. Primary subjects are to be Rubiconist prisoners of war." This reveals that Arquebus has a corporate policy of re-education, not just on Rubicon, but off-planet as well. From what we learn later, re-education is a torturous process that realigns the victims' priorities with Arquebus, making their human lives worth something to the corporation. That said, there are those that can resist this process. The log goes on to state that subjects who are resistant to re-education and who possess a certain degree of combat skill are to be processed according to the relevant procedures and transferred to the Factory. Later on, it's revealed that the Factory contains pilots that are used for experimentation. It's also revealed that these relevant procedures for processing resistant pilots seems to involve some sort of amputation or mutilation. Perhaps unsurprisingly,
have them
this
leave the
disturbing
torso
text
intact
comes
next
from none
time.
other than V2 Snail, the leader of the Vesper's second squad and the man in charge of Arquebus's re-education measures here on Rubicon. Re-education involves neurological tampering, and fittingly, Snail and Arquebus as a whole are quite obsessed with augmentation surgery, which is a similar neurological pursuit. Snail's bio reads, "After receiving Generation 8 augmentation surgery, Snail continued to receive follow-up treatments as new technologies entered the mainstream, so as to make their merits his own. Many augmented humans have died in order to assure the safety of his repeated adjustments." Before Snail's 8th generation augmentation surgery, there were 7th gens like Swinburne, and this is the man that the RLF have tasked you to kill in this mission. Somewhat less capable than the other Vespers, Swinburne is in charge of overseeing the wall's defenses back in Bellius. His bio reads, "Swinburne is a product of Generation 7, the first to receive experimental augmentation using coral substitution technology. This granted him enhanced aptitude as a pilot without the usual complications. But with no obvious indication of either efficacy or potential side effects, Swinburne's fears and doubts turned into an overpowering paranoia, the final jewel to crown his odious personality."
What the? Stop that!
Dagger.
Attack me with my back turned!
Haldeman.
His paranoia regarding his own abilities shines through here when Swinburne cuts the fight short.
No, wait! Let's
Red
not do anything
Setsu.
hasty! You realize I lead the Vesper's 7th squad, which means I hold the purse strings. Every single transaction goes through me. Let me go, and you'll still come out on top. Understand? You're quick on the uptake, aren't you? Splendid. You're not like those savages. Keep up the good work.
Let him go, and the post-mission briefing confirms his survival, though he's to be sent in for re-education. Taking this option also means betraying the RLF, who gave you this mission, and that has dire consequences as well.
Death and dishonor, such as the Oathbreakers
Breakers do.
Pay the Sanzu toll!
The Sanzu toll references Japanese mythology, where it is believed that a toll must be paid before a soul can cross the river to the other side, so to speak. This line comes from Rokum Monen, an independent mercenary and a proud weeaboo. He was watching your encounter with Swinburne, ready to dive in to
Nice to
finish
put it
you
that
off
way,
if
Vaati.
you
There you go.
betrayed the RLF. His profile reads, "A wandering independent mercenary who shelters with the RLF. Well versed in long-lost classical theater, he has a particular interest in ninjas and kabuki, relics of the past that he learned of from the Japanese immigrant culture, which now heavily influences his eccentric style." It's important to note this overt reference to Earth and its cultures persisting. Anyway, his profile goes on to explain why he fights for the RLF now. Once, when Rokum Monen was on the brink of starvation, he was rescued by Ziyi, who offered him food and shelter, and ever since that day, he has been the sworn enemy of those who would do her and her comrades harm. We see these two here in the STV sketch, with the younger Ziyi offering Rokum Monen food. With acts of kindness like this, it's not surprising that Ziyi has earned so much of the RLF's affection.
I shall
Look him in
pay
that
my
stone. Yeah, I thought his voice sounded familiar.
Watch me, good comrade Ziyi. Your reward has come. Heed me, Oathbreaker. Treachery benefits none. Coral take you, cur.
That was certainly an adventure.
I wasn't expecting that. Oh, that was a nice touch, Vaati. That was a nice touch. Well done. The random bits, like the unexpected humor is killing me in this so far. Like, that's like a Jess, just so welcome in Zero, by the way. That's kind of like a Japanese like sword bout, like sign or kanji, basically. That's what you like put up when like someone like you put the sign up. That means like defeat or whatever. That's what that is basically. He's playing real hard on the weeaboo thing, the ninja thing. Defeat.
That was certainly an adventure.
Next up, heavy missile launch support. The Coyotes are back, harassing RAD, except this time they've joined forces with the PCA. What's really interesting about this mission is the area it takes place in. You're actually launching missiles from Watchpoint Delta, the same place you met Air after triggering that coral surge. Apparently, Carla has taken it over, and now considers it RAD territory. So it makes sense that the PCA want to take it back, using the Coyotes as their pawns.
We started without you, tourist. Get to your position.
Soup, delivery boy,
We did
double
arrive as
gats.
scheduled.
All right.
I suppose they're an eager bunch.
We're all set, Chief. Commencing missile launch sequence.
Carla intends to show them some fireworks, and it's here that we meet her systems admin for the first time, Chatty Stick, an AI whose profile reads, the right hand of RAD's ringleader and chief engineer, Cinder Carla. One day, Carla built a simple suggestion-based AI to provide basic support and occasional entertainment. However, no matter what conversational prompt
Hard not to
she
like him
gave
already.
him,
But he's on
he
a
would never
wheelchair, so I
say
like him even more.
than necessary. Instead, it seemed
I
that
double like him.
he was content to be a good listener to his creator's free-spirited, eccentric ideas. Ironically, Carla does find it entertaining that Chatty never provides more dialogue than necessary. That, coupled with his extreme attentiveness to serving his creator's needs, actually gives him a lot of personality. That said, some comms records from other doses reveal a distaste for AI. Earlier, they questioned the system, and in that same log, they muse on Chatty's AI as well.
Missile launch sequence at 90%.
Warning to all illegal combatants. Disarm now or face immediate and indiscriminate termination. The PCA makes no exceptions.
The fireworks over
A
Shibuya.
warship
Let's
comes
go.
from a grid in the distance.
Punch
Presumably,
'em.
this is territory of
Boo.
the Coyotes, who now share a kennel with the PCA.
Nanny loves his
This
assault
grid
armor.
that you destroy.
Missile launch sequence complete, Chief.
He really loves his assault
You're
armor.
the best, Chatty. Here come the fireworks.
Boom.
Raven. They really are like fireworks.
This next mission doesn't take place in Bellius or on the central ice field. It takes place in between, in the Arlean Ocean, which hides a floating city built by the Rubicon Research Institute long ago. This floating city is called the Xylem, a word that refers to the part of a plant that sucks up water from root to leaf, sustaining the plant. Initially, I speculated that this might mean that the xylem could gather or monitor coral from the sea, like a plant taking up water. Alien does translate to ascend, after all. However, in cut dialogue, Air speculates that the city might have served as a maritime relay for transporting Rubicon's resources, meaning that the Rubicon Research Institute
The
might
set
have
ocean
simply
is funny
used
given the fact it
as
becomes a floating city
relay
later
station
in the sky.
for moving
Nice.
resources over the ocean.
Nice touch from.
And another piece of speculation I have is that maybe this is the ship that brought the first settlers to Rubicon in the first place. In addition to whatever other function it has, the Xylem is described as a colony ship, and the vast city suggests that it was mainly used as a habitat for people long ago. Now, however, it's uninhabited, except for the autonomous defenses that have been left intact here.
Unknown intruder detected. Normalization process E.
These defenses have taken down Walter's survey drone. He says it was sent by a friend, but we eventually discovered that he's masking the fact that he sent this drone himself, and he did this to see if the Xylem would still be operational for them later in the story. Later on, the Xylem becomes a big part of his plans. His drone reveals Xylem remains fully operational. The Planetary Closure Administration did their best to hide the place, but I'll find a way there soon enough. The only ones who know are the PCA and who? Who other than the PCA knows this place is here?
Mind.
Deploying antigens.
Walter could be about
Speaking
to
of
say
all mine,
Overseer
right there.
here, since he obviously knows about it, so would Overseer. But alternatively, he might be about to reference someone else, Allmind. Past missions have proved that Carla and Walter are investigating Allmind, digging into her simulations and cracking the codes from her ghost units. It's not ridiculous to think that they're slowly figuring out how much she knows. What's more, these units that you're fighting over the survey drone, they're identical to Allmind's ghost units that she fights with, except here they're called antigens, deployed as autonomous defenses for the Xylem. I want to quickly shout out the YouTuber Smotown here, as I wouldn't have noticed that these were ghost units if not for their own video on AC6's lore, so definitely check that out if this hours-long video isn't somehow enough for you. Anyway, in that video, Smotown
Kudos to you,
speculates
Vaati, for
that
giving the shout out.
all
That's
of
cool.
Allmind's ghost craft must have been Institute machines due to their presence as antigen units on the Xylem, which was built by the Institute, and very recently they were proven 100% correct in that speculation. That's because not long ago, Future Press released their official guide for Armored Core 6, and in it, all official names for enemies were revealed. Here we can see that the ghosts have an IA designation.
Pokemon Plus, and yeah, I got the same idea, but yeah, maybe it's just too dangerous is what I'm thinking.
Alongside the Sea Spider, the Ice Worm, and others. This is significant because without this, you could actually argue that the ghost units are here because of Allmind, and that she integrated them with the Xylem or something, but no, these and all of the machines that fight you here really are all designed by the Institute.
Change up.
Now we know what happened to the drone. I've located an ECM fog control device. See if you can access it.
I wouldn't either.
Once the ECM fog is cleared, we'll be able to see what this city really looks like.
ECM subsystems offline. Switching to encrypted circuit. Registration number RB23. Call sign Raven. Apologies for the intrusion. You have been followed. Contact is imminent.
Hostile incoming. AC.
Alternate version.
This reveals
Yep.
that someone else also knows about the Xylem. Thumb Dolmayan.
I know you, Menace.
Although Allmind does say that they followed you here, so it's also possible that he just trailed you or that PCA helicopter all the way here. Earlier, we established that Thumb Dolmayan was a doser vagrant who developed an ardent belief in symbiosis with the coral after the fires of Ibis
Nice weapon
burned
switch.
his star system. What we haven't talked about yet is why he started to have those beliefs. And the answer is that Dolmayan too started to hear a voice in his head, a wave mutation, just like ours, the second of 3 wave mutations that we now know exist. One of Dolmayan's logs reads, "How long has it been since I first saw her voice? Fear not," she said, "there will always be plenty." She told me this as I was imbibing Rubicon's blessing one fateful day. "If I were you, I'd never allow this," I replied, and I was forever ashamed by my deceit. So Dolmayan was concerned about the loss of the coral once consumed, but the voice in his head told him not to fear. Coral's ability to replicate is legendary after all, so she argued that there would never be any real loss. His log goes on to read, "Symbiosis." She seemed to be contemplating the meaning of the word. "This moment of happiness we share comes at the cost of her siblings, sacrifices all. Is that symbiosis?
Yeah, that's weird.
Surely not. As opposed
Yeah, it's a
to
little
our
weird.
contact with air, which
Yeah, a
is
little weird.
powerful and constant, Dolmayan relied on dosing for contact. Perhaps this suggests that he wasn't an augmented human. Whatever the reason, he only received a brief moment of contact, and only when he was dosing. Thus, he harbored a desire for longer contact with the voice in his head, a desire both of them shared. As always, she whispers to me from inside. She tells me that she found something in the journals of Institute City, something about the potential for symbiosis, coral release. If such a thing is truly possible, then perhaps I can join her on the other side. The fact that his wave mutation is going through the journals of Institute City reveals that this wave mutation has the exact same data mining talents of air, and since they're going through past journals, this likely took place after the fires of Ibis, but perhaps before the PCA closed off Institute City. So it was that Dolmayan learned about the potential for coral release, something that he probably wished he never knew. Suddenly, Dolmayan carried the fate of mankind on his shoulders. He could pursue coral release and elevate mankind and the coral to a new plane of existence, or he could do nothing and never achieve symbiosis for himself or anyone. After all, no one knows what lies beyond the Rubicon. STV notes, "Old man looks like he's seen some things." Dolmayan's logs go on to read, "She says that she will respect my wishes.
Seen some things.
If I cross this threshold, tragedy will befall the world of mankind. Yet,
Dude, I
if
dosed
do
with a bunch
not,
of coral and
here I
I've
stand,
seen some things.
too afraid to cast the die."
You can see them too. The voices, just as I once did.
This reveals that Dolmayan no longer sees the voices. Perhaps his wave mutation went silent as the potential for coral release died in Dolmayan's heart.
How much of our hymn have you heard, Menace? Coral, abide with Rubicon. Coral, endure within us all, for none of us shall cast the die.
In the end, Dolmayan resolved to inhabit an active state of intentionally not casting the die. The oft-repeated hymn, "Coral, abide with Rubicon," is a plea born of Dolmayan's fear and the reverence of a doser's symbiosis. It's nothing more.
Base chainsaw death.
Forgive me. Forgive this old craven.
This reveals that Dolmayan's wave mutation, too, had a name, Seria, though it seems she has long since fled Dolmayan's mind, or she was lost long ago when Dolmayan committed to a doser's symbiosis with the coral and nothing more.
Target destroyed. Good. The Rubiconian symbiosis is no more than suppression and exploitation of coral. We hope this encounter was informative.
Dolmayan's watered-down symbiosis is an affront to Allmind, who sees coral release as the way forward for humanity, a race of beings that she sees as creation's potential. Here, Allmind fulfills that familiar rogue AI trope of thinking that they know what's best for humanity, even if it comes at the expense of
I didn't
what
think about that
the
before. That is a pretty
actual
big trope.
humans
That's true.
want. Back at the
AI
wall,
knows
yet
what's best
again,
for humanity. In fact,
now
this
we
happens
learn
quite
that
often
the
on
RLF's
Record.
action against
AIs tend to go bad in Armored
Swinburne's
Core.
forces
This
at
is
the
like a
wall
general rule.
was ultimately
There's an AI in Armored
unsuccessful,
Core, just don't trust
as
it.
the
It never
PCA
ends well.
swooped in and suppressed both Arquebus and the RLF. Now it's Balam's turn. They were sending forces to attack the wall, even back when it was controlled by the RLF. They sent them to attack Arquebus as well, and they're still sending forces now. Balam just can't let go of their failure to climb the wall. In this place, we find a new video record, a rousing speech delivered by an AC in front of RLF forces. Specifically, the AC in front looks a lot like Burn Pickaxe, which was piloted by Index Dunham before we destroyed it. Their speech is as follows. They say the coral was plentiful, infinite before the fires of Ibis, and then the Institute burned this planet dry. The academics in their ivory tower underestimated the power of Rubicon's blessing, and when it laid their weaknesses bare, they burned it all to ash. From Dolmayan's writings, we learned that the Rubicon Research Institute did indeed know about coral release, and they knew what that might mean for mankind. They kept journals on the topic, after all. Therefore, when they burned the coral, it was probably because they understood its potential to destroy or alter humanity. The AC giving a speech here suggests that the RRI burned the coral because they were weak, as if they couldn't handle symbiosis with the coral, which is kind of ironic, considering that Thumb Dolmayan, their founding father, fears symbiosis via coral release in much the same way. It makes you wonder, if the RLF do eventually achieve their goal of having the coral
Hey, Leon. Yeah, I know.
Rubicon,
I think it's just because the
how
voice
long will
actor is a
it be
woman.
until they crave
And
a
also,
more
it's a very
complete
feminine sounding voice.
symbiosis?
That's probably why.
Will they always be happy with just
It's like Air.
dosing?
Is Air?
And what if Dolmayan is dead?
Is Air a
in this
woman?
future?
Call her she too.
What is the hand without its thumb? Can a mere him
I think it's just because of the
protect
voice.
against coral release?
If I were to
forever?
guess. But you're technically
End
correct,
of the
Leon.
line,
I kind
killer.
of agree with you.
I will avenge Father.
This is Ring Freddy, your would-be assassin.
Air
and
is Air.
Final finger we've yet to meet. A warrior of the Rubicon Liberation Front, paramour and personal attendant to Dolmayan, Freddy maintains an aloof distance from
Yeah,
his
wheelchair,
fellow
woo!
comrades. An admirer of the inner world of Dolmayan's mind, he entered the battlefield so that the father of the Liberation Front would never need be alone. A paramour is an old-fashioned term for lover, often used in the context of a secret relationship. This closeness is even conveyed
Ronan?
in
I'm
the
doing well.
RLF's
This video is
SDV
pretty good.
sketch, where Freddy
I've been enjoying
would
it.
be this character here, arm around Dolmayan. Not exactly subtle.
Menace to Rubicon. No wonder Father feared you. Can't read the next attack. Father, give me a sign. What should I do?
Die.
Father, guide me, please.
AC candle ring has gone silent.
But we're not here for Freddy. We're here to strike a blow against the PCA on behalf of Balaam, since the PCA have since taken over the wall from Arquebus.
Code 31A, sustaining damage.
Requesting backup.
Thriller music.
7-8.
They're piggybacking on SG's Bellius link.
Man, he loves his full armor.
Secure of
He
lives.
loves it.
There. I've made sure they can't call home for help. The rest is up to you.
If only I could reach the system.
Again, this isn't the first time
All the assault
that
armors.
Walter has cut into PCA comms. He did it before at the Watchpoint too. He really must have a backdoor installed or something.
Code 2-3, attending scene. That AC must be our independent merc. Moving to terminate.
Corpse and mercs, you're all the same. Violate the law and you'll pay the price.
You've made a big mistake, Merc.
Yeah, the drop was well timed.
621, go for the jugular.
Yeah, I love Walter. Go for the jugular.
Enforcement craft destroyed.
Jeez, Walter.
Gun 13 Raven. That was a beautiful.
I know you call me a hound, but you don't have to literally treat me like a dog. Seriously.
Survivor, no doubt.
Go for the jugular.
Let
Seriously.
me give you some advice. Join the Red Guns. Have a career. Climb the ranks. Keep that unlucky number. And eventually the curse will get you too. That's all. Don't forget what I said about putting you to work.
Here, Gun 6 Red reveals his superstition for the curse of Gun 13. By getting you to climb the ranks of the Red Guns, perhaps he really just hopes that